How you doing?
Good, I'm doing well.
What's your name?
My name is Alex Hawkins. I am the grandson of female serial killer Judy Buono.
So what was she famous for?
So she was famous for killing her husbands for insurance money. She killed her first husband with arsenic. She killed a common-law husband with arsenic. And she killed her son as well, poisoned him heavily with arsenic to the point where he was in leg braces, and then flipped his canoe over and drowned him.
Was this her son?
Yeah, that's Michael. He was a very unique young individual. He had really thick glasses. His IQ wasn't the highest, but it also, he had at a point where it was almost, as they called it, retardation. He had a specific kind of autism that we would diagnose now, but still he was able to enlist in the Army. I don't quite remember what his job was going to be in the Army. I just know he enlisted in the Army. I think he was going to do something, actually I say that, I think he was going to do something chemically wise, working with chemical weapons or working in like chemical plants. It's unique to talk about, that sort of thing. Right up here is her dictionary that she had while she was on death row. For the Department of Corrections, their requirement is that the bound that had to be on the book, the cover that had to be on the book, had to be removed, and then this duct taped soft cover was what she had to place onto here. She had this for her entire stay on death row.
How long was she on death row?
So she was on death row for 14 years. She was first put on death row in 1984, and she was executed in 1998.
Tell us about these pictures.
So these pictures here, these three came from the death house on her final visit before she was executed. These show her with her daughter Kimberly as they were embracing each other for really the final time. This photo here is the last photo of Judy alive. This shows her as they were leaving the death house. My mother, Kimberly, James, her son, and a few other different family members were leaving the death house. They took just this one final photo to really just say goodbye to her. After this, she would have had her final meal, and then she had a news interview with Sue Strong, who is a news anchor for a ABC affiliate out of Pensacola. And then this last photo right here was before she got arrested. It shows her her funny side. She was the one that would always want to make somebody laugh, and so how she made somebody laugh was to just dress up and really just be goofy. And it's always a fun. It was a fun time. My mother always said being around her because she always liked to liven the mood up.
You remember what her last meal was on death row?
So she had a meal of asparagus, broccoli, strawberries, and a hot cup of tea.
So what's these other things? Her diploma?
So this is her diploma from high school. So she went to a girls' reform school in Albuquerque, and this shows her birth name right here, Anna Lou Welty. So she was born Anna Lou Welty in Kewanna, Texas in 1943. She changed her name multiple times in her life, as shown here on this marriage certificate. This is to her first husband, James Goodyear. As it says, her name here is Ann Schultz. James is being described as from Coatesville, Pennsylvania, which is a suburb outside of Philadelphia. And it says she is from Roswell, New Mexico.
Didn't she do something with her name where it was in Spanish also when she got arrested?
Yeah, so right over here, this is her death certificate. So her last name is Buono. Buono if it's accented properly, it means Goodyear. But this last N right here is not accented, thus meaning that instead of it being Bueño Año as Goodyear, it means good ass.
That is very interesting. You know why she changed her name multiple times?
So she changed her name multiple times because her family was very worried about her. They wanted to know that she was safe, and so she would change her name multiple times to throw her family off the trail of where she was. Because when she was born, obviously she was born Anna Lou Welty. Then it was Ann Schultz, and then really when she got down to Orlando with James Goodyear, that's when the communication stopped a little bit, and it wasn't until after she moved to Colorado with Bobby Joe that she completely cut off contact with the family, and then that's when she changed her last name after Bobby Joe Morris got killed to Bueño Año.
So tell us a little bit about the death certificate.
So the death certificate for the state of Florida is pretty standard, pretty normal. So her death date was March 30th, 1998, which is also her son's birthday. So her son Michael was born March 30th, 1961. And so when you go down here, it lists her father, who was still alive at the time, as Mr. Jesse Otto Welty. Her mother, Mary Northam, she was the one that passed away from fever at about 1945, 1946. The consequences of her death is electrocution, and then the probable manner is homicide. At the death house at the Florida State Prison in Stark, which is just right outside of Gainesville. And the description of how this event occurred was an execution of the death sentence. And it states that she, again, died March 30th, 1998, and her time of death was at 7:07 a.m. So with the state of Florida, how they execute their inmates on death row, especially back then, I don't know how they do it now, is they would execute them at 7 o'clock on the dot. With the electric chair, they would give them 2 rounds of the electric chair. That would entail probably about 2 to 3 minutes. The body would then rest. When the body was rested for another few minutes, a final jolt was sent, and then afterwards, the doctor came in, and then the doctor came in at 7:07 and pronounced her deceased.
So it took 7 minutes from time it started.
Basically, it took 7 minutes from, really, actually, I say it took about 5-6 minutes, and then 1 minute was spent with the doctor doing all their tests and declaring her dead.
What happened to her remains after she passed?
So her remains were taken to Williams Colonial Crematory, where she was cremated, and her ashes were scattered in the hills of Tennessee.
Who scattered her ashes? One of your family members?
Yes, so both my mother and...
Oh, they scattered her ashes?
So they both scattered her ashes in the mountains of Tennessee. That was a place that, even with our family today, is an area that we still love, especially the Blue Ridge Mountains. And that's where Judy wanted her ashes to be scattered. She said she either wanted to be scattered in the mountains or scattered at sea. And we fulfilled her request in November of 1998, actually, and they scattered her ashes in Tennessee.
Was your mother and your grandmother friends to the end, or did she hold resentment to her?
She really didn't. Her and her mom were definitely close. There were some issues of when, back in her teenage years, when my mother was a teenager, she really, it was as I call the teenage blues. We all have the teenage blues in our lives. But really, her and her mom had a really good, close relationship, and with her passing, with her getting executed, it hurt my mother significantly. Because you go in to the death house to see your mom off, and then you know that in a few hours she won't be alive, and you have to go out and talk to the news media and try to defend really your side of the story, saying about how your mother was a mother, and you know the fact that yeah, she killed people, but she was also a mother, and it was hard on her, and it was hard on my uncle especially.
But your grandmother also did good things for the community also, didn't she? Let's tell us some positive things she's done.
So there were children in the community in Pensacola who lived really below the poverty line, lower middle class, and what she did was there is a local Christian school in Pensacola that's really a really good Christian school to go to, called Pensacola Christian Academy, and she paid for multiple kids to go to this academy and really have a great education, and an education that they really wouldn't get if they went to a traditional public school in their zoned area of Pensacola.
What did she do for a living?
So she had multiple jobs. When she graduated high school, she was a nurse. She was a nurse's assistant, and then worked as a daycare worker while she was down in Orlando with James Goodyear. And then when she came back to Gulf Breeze, Pensacola area for the second time, after killing Bobby Joe Morris in Colorado, she opened up her own nail salon called Fingers and Faces. And she was a very excellent nail artist, nail designer. She would make intricate nail designs that would really, it would shock you about how professionally done it was.
So what do you do now? Do you go to prison? Don't you visit prisons?
I do. So I go to prisons, and I also minister to mostly men, and it really is a great ministry to be a part of because of the fact that I had not a first-hand experience with incarceration, although I was also in jail myself. Really was a county jail aspect, but for me, if I get to help one guy out, that is the most important thing.
So even though a negative happened, you still think some good happened because of it?
Oh yes. I always make something good out of something negative.
Correct. So if anybody wants to buy anything from you, what do you have?
So I have these death certificates that are for sale. These death certificates are $30 a piece. We will be selling them with Offbeat Horror, and we will be able to get a link in the description, and you will be able to buy one from the Offbeat Horror website.
From the Offbeat Horror websites. You also have something a little bit bigger than the death certificates for sale?
Yes, I have her prison-worn glasses for sale as well. I have them for sale around $12,000. Those are, it's really not just a sentimental piece, but it's a very valuable piece because not a lot of people can say they owned something worn and used by someone before they were executed. The glasses also come with this poem that she wrote with her signature right here that has been notarized and authenticated as her true signature.
Is there any documentaries you're going to be a part of coming up?
There is a documentary coming out with Offbeat Horror here soon. Will be called 1,000 Masks.
1,000 Masks. Well, thank you for your time.